This conference, Action for Restoring Environment, hosted by Energy Swaraj Foundation and the All India Center for Technical Education, focuses on action. And the one significant question that has been throughout this conference has been, are we taking enough action? And we come to this, we have been posing this question to different stakeholders. Yesterday, we asked the same question to policymakers, to civil society, to eminent people, people from the media, and people from religious organizations or spiritual organizations. This particular session asked the same question to industries. In the last few years specifically, we have seen how the discussion has moved to the boardrooms of industries about, and to the investors. A lot of investors have committed to importance of ESG framework for investments, and now we are seeing that it is no more an option for industries to just limit their contribution to society in the frame of CSR, but they have to adopt the framework of ESG where the business itself becomes aligned to more inclusive, being more sustainable, and having a very strong governance. So we have a very, very interesting panel with us today. I will first call upon stage Mr. Venkat Rajaraman, who will be the moderator for this session. Mr. Venkat Rajaraman is an advisory committee member of the National Center for Photovoltaic Research and Education, NCPRE India. He has over 25 years of experience in product design and energy management. Prior to that, he was the CEO of Sukham Power Systems, leading power backup and RE solutions. May we have a big round of applause for Dr. Venkat Rajaraman. Next, we have Mr. Anirban Ghosh, Chief Sustainability Officer of the Mahindra Group. Anirban Ghosh is currently the Chief Sustainability Officer at Mahindra Group. His role involves leading the strategy and implementation of the USD 19.4 billion Mahindra Group Sustainability Rise. Thank you, sir. We're very glad to have you with us today. Next, may I invite Mr. Anil Bellari, Co-Director, Indo-German Energy Forum, IGEF. Mr. Anil Bellari has more than 33 years of experience working in program management, project development, matchmaking, policy analysis, training and capacity building, and the outreach and knowledge management in areas of energy efficiency, renewable energy, climate change, and environment. Currently, Mr. Anil Bellari is the co-director in GIF KFW project, Indo-German Energy Forum Support Office based in New Delhi. Welcome, sir. Next, may I please invite Dr. Praveer Deshmukh, Senior Counselor, CII ITC Center for Excellence for Sustainable Development. Praveer has a master's degree in botany and pursuing PhD degree from Amravati University. Welcome, Dr. Praveer. Next, may I invite Mr. Sandeep Tandon, National Project Manager, UNIDO. Mr. Sandeep Tandon is a National Project Manager of UNIDO project, Facility for Low Carbon Technology Development, which is providing support to validate innovative low carbon technologies for application in industry and commercial sectors. He's associated with the UN for over 8 years and has worked in an advisory capacity on energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in India and other Asian countries. May we have a round of applause for all our guest speakers today. May I request the team to please welcome all the guests. Also, we are very, very honored to have with us Dr. Rajiv Kumar, who is the former director of the Niti Aayog. May we have have a big round of applause for this thing.
Let us give a big round of applause to Dr. Rajiv Kumar. He is the ex-vice chairman of Niti Aayog. He has been driving a lot of policies in the country and worked very closely with the Prime Minister of India. He is kind enough to join us today. So thank you so much, sir, for being part of it. Thank you so much. It's in the set. Now this section will go 1.5 hours.
Mr. Rajiv Kumar is a renowned economist and former vice chairman of the Niti Aayog. In 2017, he was appointed as the vice chairman of Niti Aayog, Government of India's apex think tank, with the rank of cabinet minister. He was also the chairman of the Atal Innovation Mission, with its mandate to establish an innovative ecosystem in the country. Once again, we have a round of applause for all our speakers and guests present today. Thank you so much. With that, over to you, Mr. Rajaraman, for this session. Just before that, I will request the team to please welcome all the guest speakers. May I request Mr. Rajaraman to please give them a... So in this conference, we have adopted the avoid, minimize, and generate philosophy. And with that, we had tried to minimize resource consumption. And if you see that in this conference, we have not brought a lot of bouquets and everything, but just to keep that symbol of love and token of appreciation for all, we have gone with one flower for all of our guests. Thank you, Dr. Rajaman. Over to you.
Good afternoon. We are all here right after lunch. We are truly honored to have Sir Rajiv Kumar as part of this panel. We are truly humbled as well. We'll start this panel. This very interesting panel is going to be, because there are two mandates that was given. One, let's ask ourselves tough questions, right? Let's not be easy on us, because the problem in front of us is a tough problem. And number two, let's see what is the best way to handle this going forward, right? Let's look at future rather than looking at past, and see, what we could do about it. We'll start off with a, message from Mr. Harish Hande. We'll play this video. Harish Hande needs, very little introduction for this audience. He's the founder of Selco Foundation, and and he had been doing this the climate change related ones for over 2 decades now. So can I request the media to play Mr. Harish Hande's video, please?
Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you, especially to Professor Chetan. It's been a long time we have not met. Unfortunately, due to other commitments, we've not been able to make today, but I'm so glad that along with the ministries and Niti Aayog, that we are holding this very critical conference at a time when climate crisis is not at our doorstep, but inside our house. Which many people do not realize that climate crisis, as you have been pushing through your whole journey by the Swaraj bus that you have been taking across the country. But people need to realize the seriousness of this issue, because today it's not hitting the middle class or the lower middle class in any parts of the world. It's the poor who are bearing the brunt of climate for actions that they are not responsible for. We as citizens, and especially I would look at the middle class and upper middle class, as well as the industry per se, we have to step up 100 times more than what we are doing. I think it's no longer a service. I think no longer that we can do greenwashing. No longer can we actually be thinking that we will do, because by the time you think we will do, it's too late. If you look at the floods in what happened in Bangalore, look at the droughts in Maharashtra, look at the instant what happened in Assam, the crop failures, where do you think we all have the option to take a flight and run away? What is the option that the poor have? Previously, there was no social security in terms of education and health. And now you don't even know whether the house will exist tomorrow, whether the crops will be there tomorrow. What is the safety that the father or mother are able to provide the kids? No. How many of us will actually go through these conditions before we realize that what is the options? And as the question posed is, as industry, are we doing enough? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What are the innovations as an industry body we have done over the last 10, 15 years? Tell me, name one particular technology, business model, financial models that actually has led to improvement in the lives of the poor, that leads towards them getting out of poverty and is climate resilient. One. I think let's not push all our problems and saying that our CSR is going to solve it. CSR cannot solve it. I think we should and make that CSR as your primary activity, not as a CSR, but primary activity is saying that how do you bring sustainability and inclusivity in the thought process of every industry's planning process? How do we come up with better products? How do we come up with better services that are climate resilient and that are inclusive, that the poor can get out of poverty? I'm not talking of charity. Oh, industry body is not for charity. I'm sorry, it's not charity. It's the future social sustainability of the country. If the poor remain in poverty, it will not only lead to non-economic sustainability of the country, forget the environmental sustainability, you will go into social unsustainability. It's our prerogative as industry that we can come up with very innovation. How do we come with new technologies? Like, for example, in the top 10 or 15% of the world, what are we talking about? Then what is the health industry up to? Can't we create enough climate resilient technologies can be provided? The services can be rightly provided at the doorstep of the poor rather than poor have to go multiple kilometers. There's a whole excitement of innovations that actually can be done by the industry in the health, in the livelihood space, in the animal husbandry space, in the resilient space of what are we doing with the next generation of barbers, kirana shops and the eateries. It's enormous potential for the industry to look at innovation, and especially towards the young people who are in the industries should look at it as a candy store. And India, being a country of microcosm of world's problems, could also be a knowledge center for the world in terms of solutions, whether it is a barber in Maharashtra, whether it's a rice breeder in Assam, whether it's a flower plucker in Kanyakumari, or you talk about a mason in UP. How do we create innovation that lessens their drudgery, increases their income, creates a social and a climate stability to each and every 600 million people who are actually suffering from climate change? I say the answer is not about future anymore. The answer is what did you do last year? How much, rather than looking at profitably and the impact that you have, increase the profitability, how much of actually you had an impact on the 600 million people? Don't look at the 300 million people and say that's my market. How do you look at the future 600 million people who are going to, how can we make them formal? How can we make them taxpayers? How can we make that India as a country becomes resilient in health, livelihoods, education? And when every person is truly has the option of a level playing field, then we can actually call ourselves a truly developed nation. So I thank again Chetan Bhai for calling me here. I hope I can come and meet you, and we can push more the industry to realize unleash the potential that this country has among the poor and the underserved. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks.
Very powerful message from Harish Hande. I think one key message is how do we innovate out of this problem, right? So let me start off with some opening remarks. So this is going to be a very interesting panel, talking about industries. Are we doing enough, in sustainability, in environmental goals? Key thing is, let's recap what happened yesterday for those of you who were not there. 5 key messages, as I saw, was sort of brought out. The first message is your rate of solutions must be greater than the rate of problem, right? Especially from a climate perspective, right? The second thing that brought about was, I think Mr. Satish Agnihotri very beautifully said, GDP growth need not necessarily be equated with the growth of happiness, right? So I think he went on further to explain that how certain countries up until a certain point, you have a point of inflection. Up until point, it's good to have that growth. Post that, he was in fact going on to explain that we may need to pay a penalty, right, for those who have sort of crossed that threshold. The third one, Mr. Chintan Vaishnavi talked about was there is, these actions, especially with respect to climate change, are so far separated in both time and space that we are not able to make immediate connection, right? So that's clearly a problem. I think they took an example of COVID and how when COVID happened, immediately we mobilized into action. Year later, I think this young girl, class 12th girl, who was saying that most of us have forgotten about it, right? How do you bring in the sense of emergency into the scheme of things? And how do you make the small interventions that can be felt at a larger level, right? And the fourth thing that talked about was that how do we make sure that we reduce this, I think, inefficiency and wastage at the top, and how do you mobilize and energize the folks at the bottom, right? So I think this was another thing. And the last but not the least, very important talk this girl had given was, why are you, the seniors stealing our future from us, right? You are, inheriting this from our generations, and how do you sort of do that? So that's the whole context. It was a very, very powerful, sort of a 5 messages, if I were to sort of take away. I want to build on this in this particular panel, and of course, Mr. Rajikumar here, it will be fantastic to have his insights. The first question that I wanted to ask, posed to all the panelists, is that, what is the single most important intervention that you think that you need to do, right, at an individual level, at an organization level, at a governmental level? And also the question is, how do you make sure that when you had, what are all the key constraints that you are generally faced with, and what resources that do you need to solve such problem? Okay, so this is a broad question. I'm going to request to keep it between about 3 to 5 minutes, and then there are much more interesting questions that we have received from the audience. We'll talk about it. I will request Mr. Rajiv Kumar to talk first, and then go with the rest of the panelists. There, okay, actually. Oh, fantastic. Okay, got it. Okay. So maybe then we'll start off with you, Anirban. So maybe if you can sort of talk about what would be the key interventions that industries ought to be doing, and also maybe talking about what Mahindra is doing, And by the way, he's recognized as one of the global top 100 global CSR leaders, actually. So I'm sure there is going to be a lot of merit in what he's going to say.
Hello, check. Okay. I've done a lot of opening batting. I've never scored any runs. So speaking first always scares me. But when I look at the question, things that come to my mind is, first let me share with you what we have done in our lives. So all the lights in our house are LED. All taps have aerators. Fans, about barring 1 or 2, everything is a new generation BLDC fan, which consumes 1/3 the power of a regular fan. There is a sharp decrease in the amount of non-vegetarian food we consume. Maybe it's happened because of age, but it's happened. And what will probably happen next is that the car will become electric. What has not happened? I probably still travel too much, generating more emissions than I need to. On the clothes perspective, consumption is very low. In fact, I buy too few clothes, and that's often a contention between the rest of the family and me. But these are some of the things we've done. These are easy to do, everybody can do. Yeah? And these are things that have immediate impact on decarbonization of our lives. We've also taken this across to our colleagues in our business. So there is a program we have called Make Sustainability Personal. where we cover all of these things. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, all air conditioners are now 5-star inverter. So again, and very low usage, so emissions are much lower. So we've taken this program to our colleagues. It's called Make Sustainability Personal. About 10 to 12,000 colleagues engage with the program every year. Part of it is about hardware, part of it is about behavior change, about how can we live more sustainably, how can we celebrate festivals sustainably. And you mentioned right at the beginning that we are looking at economizing consumption of resources at this conference. Wonderful initiative. As you handed over the flower, I was thinking that the right place for this flower after the use will probably be the organization called Phool, P-H-O-O-L, which takes flowers from temples and mosques and converts them into agarbatti. So I don't know if they have a collection center in Delhi, but if they do, then all the flowers that you've used, they would be a great set of people to give it to. Otherwise, it will end up in some water body. Is this enough? The question that you're asking, always no. Because, like you correctly said, the rate of solution is still not greater than the rate at which the problem is proceeding. I'm tempted to go further, but this is probably not the right time. And so let the conversation proceed. We will cover more ground.
Fantastic, yeah. So make sustainability personal, right? Both through technology intervention as well as through behavioral changes. I will go to you, Anil. You have been part of IGEF, and you had been with the ESL, you had been with the WRI. We want to understand, I think IGEF is doing a lot of intervention at the SME front, right, both from a sustainability and renewable energy perspective. Talk to us, and then what are we doing enough, and what actions do we need to take?
First of all, let me
At the bottom.
It's very misleading.
First of all, let me thank Gram Swaraj for giving me this an opportunity for being part of this panel. Let me tell you what Indo-German Energy Forum stands for. I mean, we are a high-level bilateral dialogue platform between Germany and India, and we have been working on a number of projects. I mean, how to accelerate the energy transition, or Energiewende, as they call it as in Germany. Germany has been one of those pioneers in renewable energy and energy efficiency. Coming back to your question, Venkat, I mean, on how the SME sector is currently looking at energy efficiency and renewable energy, or how they should really make the transition towards clean energy and energy efficiency. Although we have a regulatory institution in place, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency and the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, I had the opportunity of working with both the institutions for a few months when I was a consultant. There are these regulatory processes, but unfortunately it is limited to some best practices in few clusters or few projects or few industries. Especially with the announcement made by our Honorable Prime Minister that we need to really look at the net zero target of 2070 and also the decarbonization efforts that have to really accelerate, because we have made a commitment of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. I mean, this has been very, clearly elucidated in the Panchamrit in the COP26 and also re-emphasized in COP27 recently. One of the biggest contributors for this 500 gigawatt renewable energy targets could be the SME sector. We also have a lot of programs and policies by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. What has happened is the 40 gigawatt target that was set for the solar rooftop, unfortunately hasn't taken off in a big way. We are still close to below 10 gigawatt. We are still, 30 gigawatt away from the rooftop. I mean, that's where exactly, I feel the SME really needs a lot of handholding. I know UNIDO has done a lot of work, UNDP has done, so has GIZ, and so has a lot of multilaterals and bilaterals. What is really, the need of the hour is how to get these SMEs. I was just thinking aloud. You have this Gram Swaraj, a wonderful concept, where you are trying to build awareness among the rural population, the villagers, and the common folks. This energy literacy or energy education or the renewable energy education is very much required for the SME sector. We as part of my consultancy, I work with SIDBI and also B and ESL. What I noticed is, these are all 1% driven or 2% driven companies or SME industries. They really need a lot of handholding, not only on the technical part of it, the policy, the financing, incentives that are available. What do? We really need to create something like SME Energy Swaraj, like what you have Gram Swaraj. That is the need of the hour. I hope that this message is taken by Professor Solanki and his team. Please go out and help them out. They really are not aware of the immense opportunities that they are missing out. And they would also contribute to the national goals. As I said, we have a huge goal to achieve. And if SMEs come on board, we'll be doing a wonderful task to the national goals. With this, I'll stop here.
Thank you, Anil. I'm glad that both Gram Swaraj and Energy Swaraj is interchangeably used. Our idea is also that, Gram Swaraj done by Gandhiji and Energy Swaraj done by Professor Solanki. So I'm glad that we are using. So I would request Sandeep Tandon to give his opening.
Good afternoon. I would like to acknowledge, this, putting together this conference by the Energy Swaraj Foundation. I think, it's a good forum for having the dialogue, a freewheeling discussion on this, topic that affects the complete society, and all the institutions and stakeholders engaged. And at the same time also to, present what different stakeholders are making contribution to the society, because one thing we have to, when we talk about as a country, we have to also realize that India, as we very, easily say India as a country, but India is really almost size of a subcontinent. It's a very big country. Even when we do some comparison with other countries, the Indian states, in terms of the size of the geography and population, equate to many countries. So saying that, India as a country is not doing enough is not right. India, is pulling together almost 20% of the humanity together, is taking, a lot of responsibility in showing the world the ways, how to, overcome these, challenges. So India, in terms of the amount of challenges that you come across in India are enormous, and the solutions are also, we come across are coming out of, India. And these solutions are valued by, many other countries. So I've been to, few other countries, where, I was surprised that they have been sending their government officials to India for getting certain training and exposure. But at the same time, so I see the work that is happening in India. We should ourselves not undermine it. The effort being put by the government as well as the stakeholders. So my engagement in the area of climate change started almost 25 years ago. Working first on the area of energy efficiency, both industries and municipality. Later on, with contribution of bagasse coal generation almost 20 years ago, and at the same time working with NTPC on power plant efficiency improvement. And we had fantastic results, and with international recognition. The only thing that we ask, are we doing enough? I think the efforts that have been gone into it needs to be recognized and sustained. And that is where I think that remains a part of the puzzle. How do we sustain those learnings that has come have been built over time? So I had also done some discussion, freewheeling discussion again with many of the educational institutions that when you're teaching your students on particularly in the area of management and others, you present case studies which are related to other countries. There are enough case studies in the India. Now, how can we share those learning, because the student can relate to the problem statements and how these solutions were arrived in India in several contexts. So I have several examples to and not go into those all these details, because in the past 20 years at the individual level, at the collective level, I have been working. So to answer your first question at the individual level, of course, since I have been working in the area of energy efficiency, I practice it. At the community level, with the Resident Welfare Association, I have been driving this whole affair. And wherever I get an opportunity, and I tell everybody that whenever you get an opportunity, please plant a tree. That would be the good return you are giving to the country and to the environment. And at the institutional level, with the organization that I have been associated with, the bilateral and the multilateral, we are working on the front end, something that we always try that government can also pay attention. With them, we try to find solution how these efforts can be sustained, so that that builds up really mass movement. Because with the size of the country, the only stakeholder who can drive it at the national level is the government of India, because they have all the resources. Not an individual organization will, with all their human resources and the money, will not be able to support it. So I'll pause there.
So that's a great. I have a follow-on question. With your experience in international organizations, especially with UNIDO, UNDP, ICF, pretty much USA. Yesterday, Mr. Atul Bagai was a keynote speaker. He was saying that COP27 did not yield the desired result. Right. The question that I have is, one, I understand individual level and at corporate national level, but this problem got to be solved at international level as well. Two questions. So, do you agree that this sort of did not excel in terms of the outcomes that had happened? And number two was, what is that we need to be working on war footing? And question is, are we doing enough at that level? It would be great to hear your thoughts on that.
So let me answer the second question. Are we doing enough? I would say that with this, the constraint that we have seen and worked through those, and I have looked back on at least past 20 years. I would say yes, reasonably. I would be satisfied with the contribution. It just need to be brought in the forefront and recognized. My only concern is that these have not been given the due importance and place in front of the various stakeholders. And as we say, are we doing enough? At least we should see what are we doing, and then ask ourselves those questions. Are we doing enough? First, let us recognize what are we doing, who's doing what, and what has been their contribution. Then we take a stock on what do we need to do more. So at certain level, yes, if you look at the whole gamut in the various sectors of the society, certain efforts are being going on. It needs to be put cohesively and presented. And even if we as a society come to know what is being done by the government, different stakeholders, I think we'll be more take a position of participatory. More people will start joining. Now, regarding the question regarding COP27, I would rather not comment, because these have become a platform for political maneuvering rather than doing something on the in reality on the climate front. But having said that, on the ground work is going on, and I can say India, because I have been directly involved, and some of the countries are doing it. The only side we all understand is everything is driven from the financial side. So this gets undermined. I think that equation needs to be changed.
Thank you. Pravit, your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for inviting me for these sessions. And it's when I saw the questions, I think for personal level, definitely it's very easy answer. But when you are representing industry association, I think the answer needs to be a little bit different. But again, I think I definitely recognize what my previous speakers talks that are we recognizing what we are already doing? And I think that's the one question where I would like to start. And I think there are lots of discussion is going on that really COP27 is success or not. But you can see that in last 2 years what happens when we are discussing about COP26, there are lots of big or very strong commitment has come forward. At least they recognize the issues. The politicians recognize the issues. They started working on it. They have given the commitment. Maybe it might be 2050, it might be 2060 or 2070. So again, despite any commitment. Again, this COP, I think the major issue which is not discussed in last so many years and we are facing these challenges is again the climate disasters. Lots of cyclones increasing in India, also in other countries, floods, droughts, heat waves. I think we have faced huge heat waves. The another problem which we are not recognizing at all and we only recognize in Delhi during the November or Diwali month is again the air pollution. So that is also an issue. But at least in this COP, there is a discussion on that loss and damages. There is a fund now coming forward, or will be a proposed fund on the adaptation fund. So I think for me, at least, yes, we are actually moving from one step to another step. Definitely the pace, again, I'm not comparing the pace, it's definitely slow, but again, the challenges is also huge. If we just consider within India, we are able to address one aspect that we want to address only the cyclone issue. There is a huge investment is required on the coastal areas. But when we are addressing cyclone issues, maybe at the same time we are creating similar issues for the internal areas where drought is happening or some else things are happening. So again, we need to consider there are challenges is huge, but at least there is a road we have started. We started working on that path. Yes, definitely it is not enough, but again, at least the road has started and they're working towards it. Again, as an industry association, and I'm working with lots of industries on a different aspect on climate, the nature part, where I think CII is only organization who is pushing lots of industries to also integrate nature as a decision-making aspect when they are working on climate or their investment. Again, it is easy for me to approach these top 100 companies or 1,000 companies. It's very easy because they are already converted one. But again, how to go or how to support MSMEs, I think that's the challenge is. Because whenever you are going with a new solution to them, it is a financial investment. Who will do that investment? How they will get the return on it? So I think, again, these are some of the questions which comes from the industry. And again, we need to identify the solutions. So again, lots of these solutions are again started at a level in India. So I think now lots of discussion is going on the green bonds, sovereign bonds and all these things. So again, yes, it is started. It is started a little late, but at least started. I think that's what my perspective or my learning from this thing. And we need to increase the pace very fast because the 1.5 degrees Celsius will be reached very shortly within the days you can see on the monitor. So we need to quickly start it rather than discussing on it. Also, we can do right now is again, so there is in a just transition, we always say that there is something is required for the transition phase. So can we also recognize the existing solutions we are having rather than waiting for green hydrogen or something alternate solutions? Let's utilize the existing solution like a crop waste. Can we make them as an alternative fuel source right now rather than burning in the farm or creating some other things from them? So again, identifying that solutions, making them as a transition pathways and then building on a much longer term. So definitely we need to search for a green hydrogen alternatives, different things which required more energy resources in the next few years as the population grows and all these things. So how can work on that area? So I think that is definitely what path we need to choose, utilizing the present solutions, building on the new solutions which can be utilized in the next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And again, one of the aspects, definitely what I want to talk is, so I think lots of discussion is going on the carbon market. Before Paris, there is a carbon market where lots of investment has come to industries and some of the projects. But again, what is happening, it is like an offset. So somebody is investing, then they are registering, and then they are getting returns. Why can't we make them that market as an investment market? And again, that will add more and more solution, very quick solutions, and it will help the vulnerable people. So for example, if the farmer is practicing sustainable practices, how we can invest right from the day one to the farmer, that if he invests or he only practice sustainable practice, and again the market linkage will be there for him, so he will sustain that practice. So with that investment model, we can reduce the risk to the farmers, we can help them in actually building more resilient agriculture system. And again, same thing can happen, rather than waiting that somebody else can do, we can start investing from our own point. And I think definitely we do talk about that investment starting from our own change. I think that will happen. So again, just think about how we can go in an investment model. For business, cost is very low if we go in an investment model rather than going for offset. So I think that's my financial analysis. But again, I will be happy to discuss more on it.
Thank you, Pravesh. One tough question. You represent the industry body. Industry body where you are responsible for the sustainability and environment for these ones, and of course sustainability is part of the COE. We go, we buy a beauty product. It's that nature is built inside there, right? I go there, get my plastic, whatever plastic, get a 10% discount. Right? Go and return your old clothes and then get a coupon and then buy more clothes, right? There's a lot of greenwashing that happens by the industry. I remember talking about a detergent which was talking about having a Nimbu in there. Gotten into the details, there was it's all washing. So the sustainability has become a fashion word here. What does the industry body can do to, in some which way, stop this, measure this, bring this to the forefront, and what can be? We would love to hear. I think anybody's back on.
I think there is a challenge, two different things. First thing is what we choose. So again, there are lots of alternatives are available to choose the product. So for example, when we go in the supermarket, there is organic products are available and non-organic products are available. And again, we have a price range. And again, they both claim that it's sustainable and all these things. So what we are choosing, really, we are choosing the bottle which is water pack in a plastic, or we are carrying our own bottle. So again, it's an individual choice. And again, what is happening is because now the people are more tend to buy the green products, or which is actually having a green labels and all these things. Again, there is no sanctionity of labels. So recently we did similar exercise for the biodiversity labels or organic label. So within India, there are more than 50,000 labels are available for organic products or sustainable products, and there is no standards available for them. So again, that's the challenge, and again, we are trying to address that. Only labeling green or going with that is not possible. We have to showcase the real examples, the companies who are working with CII, or when we are working with the sustainability aspect, we actually create that awareness that how they can actually create a product which is more sustainable, that rather than only talking as it is utilized with a natural products, or again, they can talk about how they are sourcing that natural product. Some of the times that information is also missing. So again, that's what we are trying to create awareness. But again, and there are two different teams. So again, there is a different marketing team and there is a product development team. So both teams didn't talk within the business also. And again, that's the confusion. One marketing team want to sell the product, and the production team want to meet the requirement of the marketing team. Again, there are challenges within the organizations, within the marketing and different teams, or who are sourcing or who are selling. So I think that type of awareness, definitely industries we are doing through CII, but again, the pace is very slow, reach is also less. And again, I think major is how the consumer take the decision. I think that is more important than what companies are saying. And again, I think skilling will be the critical issue there also required.
Anyone has any thoughts on that? Yeah, so I think clearly this is something that we got to be doing more, and clearly this is something an industry body would be good to take leadership role there. Anirbhai, coming back to you, I think you are you represent the industry here. Rest of the folks are all from other agencies. Talk to us about sustainability. How you are viewing it. How do we bring that, as in the front and center of all the discussions, and what we ought to be doing more to bring this so that the clock which is ticking can be sort of in some which way arrested. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Venkat, I must first acknowledge the other agencies present here because they've all played a part in our sustainability journey. EESL has brought all the motors, some thousands of which we have replaced. The air conditioners, again, upwards of 3,000 that we've replaced. UNIDO has been a partner in many of our circular economy conversations. CII, of course, through the work that they do in the committees and the technologies that we discuss, which get implemented in our organization. So how do you bring it front and center in an organization, in a company? Last time I was speaking to you, things that we can do as individuals. And they were just some samples. There's more, but we'll deal with that. What do you do in a company? The sustainability of a company depends on its ability to create value for consumers and to generate economic profit. This rule will not change, because it then requires the change of the complete global economic system, which is difficult to envisage. So then are we stuck? Fortunately, we are not. A lot of climate solutions are not only great for the planet, but they're also great for implementing in businesses in two ways. Brings costs down and also gives opportunity for new sources of revenue. There are more about managing risk, about building reputation, about attracting talent and getting money, and all these good things can happen if you take good, strong climate action. Now, not everybody realizes this, and it is because of this that the pace at which the solutions are getting adopted is much slower than it can be. So today, it is possible to ramp up, say, adoption of renewable energy. It is possible to ramp up energy efficiency. Returns are very good. Every extra rupee you have, you can invest in this. You will get more returns than your basic business gives you. That's what gives us the opportunity. In fact, many people say that the goals that we have to achieve by 2030, the technology already exists and is economically feasible. The goals that we have to reach by 2050, we need a few more technologies. So what have we done in the organization? We've got a framework that guides action across every single business. We've identified what is it that we can do now. We've stepped up investments in those solutions. In the last 5 years, we've gone from an annual investment of about 2 crores a year to we're close upwards of 50 crores a year now. And this does not count all investments we've made in developing electrical vehicles, in making net zero energy residential buildings. These we don't even count because this capex is straight for growing the business. The number I told you is about energy efficiency, decarbonization of operations, making circular economy happen, and making sure that we don't send any waste to landfill, getting every location certified, and creating value from the waste that we produce so that it comes back into the ecosystem and is not destroyed somewhere. So now every business has A, made commitments, B has goals, C has programs, and there is a very big capacity building program for colleagues of mine to help them understand how they can leverage sustainability to do their own job better. So how does the marketing person do his own job better by looking at sustainability? How does the operations person, or by operations I mean manufacturing, how does the purchasing person, and how does the finance person, how do they do their own job better by doing things related to sustainability? So it's not really something that is new and separate from what an organization has to do. It is a path towards being a resilient, successful organization in the future. It's very simple to understand. If we don't make electric vehicles, we will not have an automobile business in the future. If we do not reduce our costs of operation, we will not be competitive in the future. So sustainability is not something alien. It is something that has to be done by business for its own resilience. And the good thing is, while it is looking after its own resilience through sustainability action, it is making a huge contribution towards climate action and towards the solution of the climate problem that we are discussing.
Thank you. Fantastic. So, this is from, large corporate. Clearly there is a, direction, there is a motivation, there is a, method behind the madness. Anil, I want to hear from you. You have been dealing with a lot of SMEs, right? SMEs are, biggest contributors for our GDP, and they are largest polluters as well, right? How do you handle this? What do you see when you are dealing with this, a lot of SMEs that you are dealing with? Do you think that there is enough action on the ground at that level? And what interventions do you do, or do you think we ought to be doing to fast pace that, towards this climate change, towards this, environmentally safe practices and so on? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Venkat. One of the things that I noticed during my stint with BE and ESL was that SMEs do think that they have to first see how that best practice has happened. For example, somebody has deployed an energy efficient equipment and what the payback has been. But the issue there is, is the neighborhood SME willing to share that experience, willing to share that success story? I do remember when I visited the Kolhapur foundry, we went to a neighborhood foundry, a Belgaum foundry, and we found that, the guy in another foundry was not willing to share that, rich dividends he had reaped through the deployment of energy efficient technologies. How do we go about that? Some of these financing happens through bank financing, right? If we have the institutions like SIDBIs or NABARDs or SBIs of the world, we get them on board and say that, okay, here is a borrower who has utilized that money for deploying and he has got good dividends, right? That's the best way. You create those champions in the SMEs and make them share the experiences, and that's the only way to go about. And also get them share their experience in vernacular language. It's, because a lot of SMEs may not be fully conversant with the English language. And if they have to make investments in those new technologies which are energy efficient, which are clean, they have to really see to believe that. That's the way to go about. I would see that, these institutions are well equipped, but there is a lot of prodding that is required, and these champions have to be really recognized, and they should really go about propagating these success stories. Just to add another point, on the SME, there is this national carbon market which is coming up in the next few months. Government of India is working very seriously on that, and SMEs should be made aware of the fruits of the carbon market. It's the large corporates which have benefited in the first carbon market growth, and I feel SMEs should really get both on the perform achieve trade, the energy certificates, and also the carbon market. That's the wish list that I have for the SMEs.
Thank you, Anil. Yes, please. Yeah.
SMEs are actually in a better place than we think they are. Because, actually, if you're in any agriculture conference, you will hear a strain that the farmer does not know, we have to teach him. When you come to sustainability, we do the same thing with SMEs. It turns out that the entrepreneurs at the SME level are really smart. The moment they see a good solution, they get going. And you were alluding to that solution. Organizations like ours have worked extensively with our supply chain. Yeah, there are people outside the supply chain too. And we've actually helped an organization called Institute for Sustainable Communities go and train SME organizations on things that they can do today, which will reduce emissions, reduce costs. So initially it was a capacity building organization, but then we nudged them towards actually doing energy audits and helping them reduce their emissions and reduce their costs. So they've covered upwards of 800 odd organizations now. It's still a small fraction in our SME ecosystem, but there are enough success stories out there for people like CII and FICCI and Bombay Chamber and others to leverage and grow and see that this movement becomes bigger and bigger. There are other very interesting things happening. So many of our SMEs have international clients in Europe, in America, other countries. Those guys want their supply chain to be green. And so if they want that business, they have no other choice. Some SMEs are growing fairly rapidly in our country and are attracting investment from investors abroad who are insisting on a green footprint. So either you have the green footprint today or you have a roadmap which you are following, otherwise you don't have access to that money. So willy-nilly, a lot is happening. It's almost like an iceberg. We're not yet seeing what is actually happening. Yes, it's true, a lot more needs to be done because a number of SMEs are very, very large. Some of them are really, really small. We regularly believe that SMEs cannot afford things. But if you have a project which has a 2-year payback period and a 24% IRR, there is enough money for projects like this. Banks will lend, people will give you money, OEs will give you support. And as of now, there are plenty of such projects. When we run out of these projects, we need other mechanisms. But the reason why we say the things we do about SMEs is because the pace can be much faster. And it is not. In fact, we have a massive opportunity in our country. Most of our SMEs are in clusters. So there's a Kolhapur cluster and a Ludhiana cluster and a Coimbatore cluster and so on. If we were able to action sustainability action cluster-wise, it would just work beautifully. I know this has been discussed in a number of fora. I have personally said it in many CII conferences. But then somebody, and I don't know who it will be, will have to bell the cat and get this started. We've tried at Nasik, where we have our factory. We asked our factory head that, you're pretty much a person well respected in Nasik. Why don't you get everybody together, bring them to our factory, show them what we've done, and enable them to do the same things themselves. In fact, ESL and us, we could partner and take this work to SMEs in industrial clusters, at least the places where we have factories. Because that is a living example of all motors going from IE1 to IE3, very soon IE5. Right? So we are quite happy to help in that space, but somebody will have to bell the cat. It will not happen on its own.
Excellent point. Yeah, thank you. Sure. Yeah.
Let me just add to the point. UNIDO, my other colleague, had worked on this project on energy, promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy in MSME cluster that we have been, UNIDO was doing with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It's been a long-drawn project for a variety of reasons, but we reached out to about 13 or 14 MSME cluster, and including in consultation with the Ministry of MSME, these were identified which were energy intensive. So Jalandhar, Ludhiana, Nagaur for hand tool, Thangad and Morbi in Gujarat for ceramic, sanitary ware, Belgaum and Coimbatore, as well as few other clusters for the dairy sector, including reaching out to Sikkim. So yes, as a cluster approach, yes, certain things have been have worked someplace, but cluster itself is huge. So it takes time to penetrate and to adopt these solutions. So there's always a slow process. We can just do initial kind of seeding, but for it to percolate down takes over time, and you have to allow that it's a natural process. So the hesitation of the MSME for investing in these technologies because it's a family-run business. They don't have much of the technical support, and they could be pretty much driven by the vendor or the process supplier. Because when we touch upon anything that is impinging upon the process, then it's a no-go region and would apply to everybody. So that is one, and the other bigger factor has been the market uncertainty for them. For anybody who makes an investment decision, they need investment horizon and stability for at least 5 to 6 years to reap the benefit. So regardless if you set aside the IRR and those matrices, which I tend to challenge, because if you have to go for net zero, you have to adopt new matrices and new yardsticks for making those investment decisions. So those were tool for the commercially available technology. And since my project, we are leading driving innovations, again working with Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and these are environment related funded project. So we have come across a lot of innovative solutions for mainly the industrial and commercial sector application. But through this, we have also done a discovery of where the intervention can be when you go for decarbonization and net zero, and that's a different topic. But I would just say that there's a lot of work happening in India, and I'm very positive about a lot of not only the incremental, but in some cases there is also disruptive innovation happening in the country being done by the Indian entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you. We are pretty much, coming to a close of this panel discussion before I request Rajiv ji to give his comments. So any audience questions, anything from the audience? I see one hand going up there. There is one at the back. So we'll limit to 2 questions so that we have enough time for Rajiv ji. So can I have somebody pass
May I
them?
request the people who have questions to just come forward quickly? Can you please come forward near to the stage?
Very good afternoon. So I'm Trisha Kumar, and I'm youth delegate to the United Nations Environment Program and part of the global coordination team of the Sustainable Consumption and Production Youth Platform. My question to you is, I have 2 questions, very short questions. So first is that most of the sustainable or more eco-friendly items are not as affordable as the unsustainable options when we talk about organic food items, or when we're also talking about the cheaper plastic-based items. So that essentially, especially after the COVID and the economic recession, that has a very high impact on the viability of those businesses. And my second question was, with the rampant popularization of the use of electric vehicles and the sudden rise in their consumption as well, but there is at the same time a very strong risk of the waste generated with the electric vehicle batteries. And at the moment, we don't have sufficient infrastructure to manage the waste which would be generated at a higher pace. Thank you.
Is going to take that question. Take all the questions? Yeah, so can we take all the questions first, and then maybe it will be a good way to answer. So two great questions.
Yeah, my name is Srinivas Rajaram. I am a student of Professor Chetan. We work with an NGO called Fasten and our own NGO called Amar Imitate, ground level grassroots. So now, recently after attending 2 days back on the TS biodiversity workshop, the major questions raised are this. that there should be convergence between the biodiversity and the climate change aspects, which will lead to a lot of small scale industries as well as other policy level issues like push, pull and policy. So there are a lot of frameworks and mechanisms missing. If this conference would come out with such kind of models where we can go with the great things would be useful. So we want you to throw light on that.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Dr. Tiwari from Watson. I attended this Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Brisbane in September 2022. There was a lot of discussion about Sendai framework and also on the small budget engagement at ground level. So I would like the panel to just throw the light on what we are doing on small budget things and engagement at last mile. Thank you very much.
Got it, yeah. So we'll take this set of questions. So first one is on, are sustainable products cheaper? Why are they more expensive? And number two, the question that I want to add on top of that is, are they really sustainable, right? Are they really, anybody would want to take that?
Short answer, some of them are more expensive, but not all of them are. So once upon a time, LEDs were more expensive. Today they are good. BLDC fans, payback period not bad, and so on. But simpler things, like now you have bamboo toothbrushes. They are a whole lot more expensive than the regular plastic toothbrush. But they're not so expensive that we can't afford them. If we really want to make a difference, then transitioning from a plastic toothbrush to a bamboo toothbrush is eminently possible. Many of you will have your parents or your mother or somebody using agarbatti at home. Transitioning from the regular chemical agarbatti to something that's made from flowers, not very difficult at all. The short point I'm making is there are many things that are possible to do today, which we should do today. And if you find something is too expensive for you today, no problem, hold off. In a few years, the costs will probably come down, because that's the direction things are taking. When anyone tells me that sustainability is more expensive, this is what I say, that there are some things which are not more expensive. Let's do as much of that as possible. The ones that are more expensive today will gradually become affordable in future.
It's not working. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me all?
Hello, check.
So there was one more question on EV, on battery and recycling. Maybe I can talk about it because I'm from that industry, and then maybe let others talk. Recycling is going to be a very big role for India, because there are several startups, innovative companies working on battery recycling. I would encourage you to look up. There are half a dozen of them who are sort of showing that in various pilot scales. There was also a policy intervention that had happened. There was a battery recycling rules that came up in August 2022, where there is an extended producer responsibility, right, for those who are manufacturing those recycled the batteries, both lead acid and lithium ion. India can happen to be an urban mining capital of the world, right? I always talk about it because we have 1 billion plus mobile phones, we have a few million of electronic gadgets, and then now we have electric vehicle getting added. All of them are in some which way a form of lithium ion. And world over, it has been proven that you can recycle over 95% with zero effluent plants, right? So to answer your question, are we there yet? No. But will we be there? Definitely. I think we have a aspiration where we could become the urban mining capital of the world, and the estimate is we could recycle up to 80 gigawatt hour by 2030. That can meet most of our requirements as well. So that's answer on the battery recycling. There was one question on framework and models. I'm going to skip that because that's going to be a little longer for want of time. One other question on small project engagements at ground level. maybe I would request Sandeep or one of you to talk about it. If you have an experience of doing that at a ground level, and then what is that we ought to be doing there.
Maybe I can just attempt, because that's more like a very open-ended in the sense that a lot of efforts have been done by various agencies, international, bilateral, even government. These are often tried out as a pilot for a particular purpose. Where they have not worked is, or why you don't hear and see about it, the replication is very, very challenging. What works in certain place on the ground in certain contexts may not necessarily works, because that ground reality could differ in another place. So that applies to technology, and technology may work. Provided you provide the same environment and same stakeholders their contribution. But business model is where it differs a little bit. So I have done certain projects which are on the ground. It is to demonstrate certain technologies. Technologies have worked, but business model around it has not really worked. But having said that, again, in terms of the innovation, some of the entrepreneurs are connected with looking at the problem, because the innovation that we are supporting is what are the challenges, what are the technology gaps that exist, and can then innovative solution be brought out. And in many cases, entrepreneurs have brought out very beautiful solutions that they are able to scale up, raise fund, and work on. It depends on the sector. We have solutions in the dairy sector where for providing the instant milk chilling to prevent the spoilage of milk, and these have been proven to be more climate friendly solutions that just does away the dependence on the diesel genset. And it, now on that basis they are replicating it. There was a talk in the video, what Harish said, for a floriculture. We have another startup who is working with similar solutions. So just as we hear more about electrical energy storage, in our program we came across from the entrepreneur about thermal energy storage. So we have come across various solutions, and these have been, the entrepreneur themselves have been able to scale it up and demonstrate that it leads to energy saving as well as reduction in the dependence on fossil fuel for that particular model. And they are thriving, they are growing. I mean, within a matter of 3 years since the time I've come across with those startups, they have built up the bases from Chennai, Bangalore, and Delhi. So the answer is yes, in certain cases when you really look at the technology intervention and the business solution that is needed, then it works. But if you purely look for a certain with the technology, obviously it cannot be replicated and scaled up.
Thank you. Yeah, with that I think we'll come to the end of this formal panel session. I am going to request Rajiv ji to give his thoughts. For those, I'm sure every one of us know, he had headed the Apex think tank, Niti Aayog. Some of the policy interventions that had come out during this time, had a far-reaching, impact for India. I will request Rajiv ji to.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, Professor Solanki, for organizing this and for inviting me here for this section. Really good, and I do hope that this clock that you have put up actually does create the full awareness amongst us sitting here and otherwise that we are faced with an emergency. I think that's something which is not yet, I don't see that actually wherever I go, whether in academic circles or industry associations or even within the government, the sense of the emergency is not there. And this is what we did in Niti Aayog for water. Which is that we actually came out with a report which said those words, that India is faced with a water emergency and that there could be cities which could be without water for a while. And I think this is something that we have to recognize, and I think all of us sitting here, the youngsters and so on, basically India's elite has to recognize this, because the poor of this country don't have a choice. Whatever choice, individual choices that we talk about is that faced by the elite. And the elite's own behavior and aspirational goals have to change, in the sense that why should young people want to still buy a car, especially a fossil-driven car, and not cycle their way to the work or to universities and so on. It's something that we need to start here. And I don't see that happening. I don't see, for example, schools encouraging their children to come on bicycles, or going out on treks and so on. So I think the first point, by the way, all the points that I'm trying to make, I will make today is in the context of saying that we need action is now pretty well established. What is that action that we need to take and how we will take it is what I'm going to focus on, because that's something that we don't focus upon as much as we should. As far in my view, we still talk about generalities in a very big way and keep ourselves at 30,000 feet, which is not going to do the trick as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I'm going to focus on that. So the first thing is to change middle class aspirations. And this is where Professor Solanki is playing his role. And I think all of us can do that everywhere. And how do we change that mindset? Now, it's not easy, because India's per capita energy consumption is, I think, less than 1,000 kilowatt hours, where the world average is 3,000 kilowatt hours. And United States consumes 27,000. Now, so tell people who are consuming on an average 1,000, which means that the 70% are consuming probably much less than that. The 30%, the whole thing is very skewed, is not going to be fair. And so what do you do about that? And I think here is the big challenge for us in India. And let me take a step back further and tell the audience here that India is probably the only country in human history which is faced with the challenge of having to grow exponentially and also become green exponentially. And that nobody else has done that. And that's what is the challenge that is faced us. And let's face it, this is what it is. Green and growth are both required. So that is where, and therefore I was talking about also the energy consumption, the necessity of product innovation is supermost. And which is what I find almost completely missing in our industry and in our country and in our society. We are still trying to follow other people's models. We're still trying to follow other people's practices, and what they are doing, and looking at the West or looking at Europe or looking at wherever to see that this is what we can do. That will just not do. What we need to do is to find new solutions. And for example, some of this which you try to do in Niti Aayog, there are now available new forms of concrete, which will take much less cement and much less steel, etc., and be much more resilient than the steel that you have, the concrete that you have today. Why isn't, for example, and we had Professor Samrudki, coming to that. That's the product we need to innovate. We need to innovate on lab-grown proteins. They're simple, they're possible. It's happening, but we are not adopting it in the way that we should do. So product, again, I'm a part of the thing called the Parley India Foundation. I don't know how many of us youngsters, all of us have known of this gentleman called Cyril Gutz, who has an organization called Parley for the Oceans, which intercepts the plastic in the oceans. And there is more plastic in the ocean than you can think about. He intercepts, his organization intercepts plastics in the ocean, upgrades them into the finest yarn that you can get, and then supplies that yarn to leading manufacturers like Adidas and Louis Vuitton and others, and converts them into high upmarket products. The point being here is that, as I think you said, which is that here is a process by which you can really multiple increases in your profitability by using the material that is supposed to be waste and that is supposed to be climate most unfriendly. So now here I'm a part of that for India. And what I was saying is that he has not found, except for one or two, ready acceptors to the idea that municipalities could collect all the plastic and then converted this into, upgrade it into upgrade yarn. That's what we need to do at the moment. So that's so first point, let's focus on product innovation, because that's possible, that can be done and has to be done. And, and how we'll do it is, now, another example, and the second one, is that we need to rethink a lot of our industrial and agricultural processes. Because I've done that in Niti Aayog, so I can talk about one, and which is, can we adopt chemical-free agriculture in this country? Now that's something that's the Prime Minister, after 2 years of our working together, finally announced it last year on the 21st of November, has included that in his 15th August address this time, and 3 million farmers have already adopted it. Zero chemical for farming, without loss of income. Let me put it rightly, without any significant drop in yields and productivity, but with huge increases in net incomes because the costs come down. And imagine the positive environmental impact of this. The carbon content of the soil is supposed to be 1.5 to keep it arable. It was 2.5% in 1947. Today it is 0.4% in this country. Now we're converting our soil into inarable soil. So that's the second thing. Similarly for industry, we have done in Niti Aayog, the hard to abate industries like cement, fertilizers, others, what is the process innovation that can utilize much more hydrogen than what we have done today? How many of us are doing that? And again, that is an innovation that we need, to take forward. I am saying these things, friends, simply because one, I think you said that, but I'm trying to put it in a summary way. We can do well by doing good. That's the motto to follow. And how can each firm, how can each industry, how can each farmer think in those terms that we are doing well ourselves, improving our net incomes and profitability by doing good for the society and much more for the environment, because that's the focus that we have today. And if we do that in India, India is in a position and actually has a necessity to emerge as the world leader in environmental innovation. Because that's our necessity. We can't, others have gotten away with it, but we haven't, and we won't be able to do so. So let's think in those terms that we need to become world leaders. Vishwaguru, that's what we keep talking about. Here is our opportunity to become the Vishwagurus that we have. Now here again, let me just give one more thought, which is that I've been the chief economist of CII, and I have been the Secretary General of FICCI, so I know how those organizations work, and I've encouraged them at different points of time to start ranking their members in terms of their environmental work that they do. Why wouldn't we do it? Now, we in Niti Aayog have done that for states. We in Niti Aayog have done that for other things, for environment, for water, for preparedness, for this, that, and the other. I think it's time that each committee of each of these organizations, whether it's the steel committee or the auto industry or whatever, develops a criteria, develops the metrics for ranking your members and then putting it out in the public domain. So that there is a sense of competition to become the number one environmental protector in your field. And I think if you do that, then you can complement what the government is doing to try and push this agenda forward. Industry's role, again, if Europeans can demand that their supply chain be green, so can we. And are we doing that? And if we do that, then I think our entire vendor chain, our entire supply chain within the country. But this is the nub. In Japan, the OEMs will spend their own money to make their vendors better and green and more efficient. I don't know of many OEMs in this country who are willing to do that. And this collaboration between the OEMs and the supply chain that is required, I think is not yet as forthcoming. Let me also say here that for environment, we will not be able to make much progress unless we genuinely activate a true sense of public-private partnership. Because that's what is required. I think the government has very often the monies, but they don't spend them very usefully. And this is where something that I've learned from Niti Aayog is that you can't do public-private partnership for this unless you develop a sense of trust between the government and the industry, and the government and the civil society, and the government and the farmer. Now that's the key question, and I think that's what we need to focus on. How do we develop that trust that all of us are behaving and acting to achieve the same goals that we have, which is net zero by 2070 or 500 gigawatts? People don't believe that. We are doing something, but I don't trust that you are doing the same. Then why? And I think this thing can start much better at the level of our states rather than at the center. Because each state in our country is pretty much an independent country by itself and has its own peculiarities. So if the industry associations or the industry firms themselves begin to work with the state governments and the civil society within the state, then I think we will achieve a lot more in real terms at the ground level than that what we have. And I've just been the other day to Indore, and that reminds me, and maybe this will be the last point that I make, which is that a lot of work can be done at the local government level, at the municipality level, at the municipal corporation level. They are the real players in this whole game, actually, in the urban side and the gram panchayats, etc., on the rural side. I have yet to see, and I think this is a real frontier here, where industry and local governments can come together and work together to try and achieve environmental goals that we've set for ourselves. Friends, just one thing by sheer side, thank you, giving us the rose and making it resource light. In 2012, I started the practice in FICCI of welcoming every one of our guests with a certificate that we will grow trees for them. And I think that might be one step further. And that's the sort of thing that we need to do, that you come here and we'll grow 10 trees on your behalf. There are organizations which are doing that. And finally, I agree with you completely, and I know of some companies which again are leading the world in recycling of batteries and electronic waste. Leading the world. They are being invited now to East Europe and to the US to put up their plants. And they promised us, and I believe that, which is that if we recycle enough, we don't need to import lithium any longer. We don't need to import nickel any longer. We can just do it through urban mining. And I think that's the way. And finally, as Gurdeep Singh of NTPC put it at Niti Aayog the other day, our future is solar plus hydrogen, green hydrogen. And if we can do that, a series of hydrogen desalination plants on the coastline connected to the, to the hydrogen, to the electrolysis plant along the way, and I think India can achieve 3,000 kilowatt hours of energy while becoming greener than what it is. But that is the way, that's the new way, and that's the scale at which we have to start thinking and root ourselves on the ground realities that we have. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It started off with Harish Hande talking about importance of product innovation and ending up with the point getting reiterated. We will try to do our best, sir. Before we conclude the session, we have a short video. This is about ELT. How many of you have heard of this acronym ELT? Oh, okay. I would want to see next time maybe all the hands go up. This is for energy literacy training. Can I have this video, please?
So I took a mic. I just wanted to thank Dr. Rajiv Kumar. He's the one who actually launched the energy literacy training in this January, and you can see the progress. And you also mentioned that India actually can be the world leader in telling people how to live sustainably and environmentally friendly. So thank you so much for providing all your support, and we hope that with everyone's support, we will make 1 billion people energy literate by 2030 by the time when my yatra finishes. So thank you very, very much for it.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you all the esteemed panelists, and then I hope you found this session engaging. Thank you.
Thank you. May I request all the guests to please come forward for a group photo, and also request Professor Solanki if you can please come up and join the group photo. So guests, can we just wait for the photo before the felicitation? Okay, we'll complete the felicitation. Can we have a big round of applause for all our esteemed guests and speakers? Thank you. We will cut down the next break for 10-15 minutes. So I request everyone please grab some tea and come back in the auditorium in the next 10 to 15 minutes.